Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. Apologies for a slightly late start due to some technical issues. The first item on the agenda is the nomination of chair. Could I please ask for nominations for the chair of the meeting? Apologies, you're on mute, Councillor Makin.
Yeah. I propose Councillor Cowper.
Thank you. Nigel Bembo, is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the meeting. I'm Councillor Pauline Cowper from Cannon Hill Ward, and I would like to ask my fellow councillors to introduce themselves.
Right. I am Nigel from Abbey Ward.
And I'm Russell Makin from Cricket Green Ward in Mitcham.
Thank you very much. Now this hearing is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. Please be aware, as the meeting is being held virtually, there may be a slight delay. If at any time anyone experiences technical difficulties, they should let the clerk, Amy, know. In the event any party to the hearing loses connection and is no longer present in the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting immediately for a few minutes while we resolve the issue. In the event the issues cannot be resolved, the meeting will be rescheduled for another date as soon as is practicable. Are there any declarations of interest from councillors?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to inform all parties that
I think Councillor Makin was trying to say something.
I'd just like to declare that I did actually attend this event last year.
Sorry, Russell.
I did actually attend this event last year, but that's not going to influence the decision.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I'm sorry, it's probably me.
I attended an underbelly event last year when it was held in Wimbledon Park. But that is not going to influence.
Yes, sorry about that. Yes, I understand. Can I ask the legal advisor to inform those present that the subcommittee had a briefing prior to the hearing to confirm the procedure and for clarification on any aspect of the application?
Yes, that's correct. I explained the process of objections and counter notices under the temporary event notice procedure and that sort of thing, so that the committee is fully aware of what their role is.
Right. May I ask the licensing officer if there are any technical issues that she feels should be brought to the panel's attention?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give you a brief summary of the temporary event notices that you are considering today, if I may, please.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So the licensing authority received 5 temporary event notifications from Herbert Woodhead, the event organizer for street food events, which he is proposing to hold the event at Event Suite 5, Wimbledon Park, Home Park Road. One of the notifications was late, and these are the following dates that you wanted to have these events at Wimbledon Park. So the first temporary event notice was for the 20th of May till the 23rd of May. The second temporary event notice was the 27th of May till the 31st of May. The third one is 3rd of June till 6th of June. The fourth one is 10th of June till the 13th of June. And the fifth one is the 17th of June till the 20th of June. Mr. Woodhead has supplied an event management plan for this event, Chair, and he has stated in the event management plan that Street Eat is a repeat of the same event that happened last year in Wimbledon Park during August 2020. The full details of the plan that is produced is on pages 56 to 83 of the agenda. On the 11th of May, these notifications were sent to Metropolitan Police and also to Environmental Health, Noise Nuisance Team as responsible authorities under the Licensing Act that can comment on these temporary event notices. On the 14th of May, the Licensing Authority received an objection to all the 5 temporary event notices from Metropolitan Police. The temporary event notice, which was due to take on the 20th of May to the 23rd of May, we had to issue a counter notice as required under the Licensing Act because this temporary event notice was late, Chair. The police objection is concerning the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance being undermined if these events were to be acknowledged by the Licensing Authority. Mr. Woodhead responded to the police objection. His response, Chair, is produced on pages 88 to 89 of the agenda. No objections were received from Environmental Health, Noise and Nuisance Team in respect of these 10s. Copies of the objections have been forwarded to the event organizer and to the subcommittee today. The remaining 4 temporary event notices were standard notifications, Chair, and they are before the licensing committee today to make a decision. In considering the objections, the subcommittee must take such of the following steps as they consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. So one of the options the subcommittee can take today is to allow the licensable activities to go ahead as stated in the temporary event notice. Secondly, the committee can issue a counter notice under Section 105 of the Licensing Act if members consider it necessary for promotion of the licensing objective. In this case,
sorry, appropriate.
Appropriate, yeah, sorry about that. In this case, the temporary event notices may not proceed if a counter notice is to be issued. These are the notifications that have been submitted to the Licensing Authority, Chair, as I understand them. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you have any points for clarification. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I have a clarification I need to ask to inform everybody. I understand that the hours for the, I think it was the last 10s in August last year, were earlier than the proposed terminal hours in these 10s. Is that something Daniel Ward can perhaps explain? Sorry.
Thank you, Guy. As I explained at the outset, the hearing and order of speakers will be following the procedures included in your agenda pack. As this is an application for a temporary event notice, we will start with the presentation by the Metropolitan Police. Yes, Russell?
So could Daniel Wand answer the question that the legal advisor asked before we go on to the police, please?
Yeah, I'm grateful. Sorry, Mr. Legal Advisor, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't follow it.
Yes, no, my understanding was, again, I'm not clear, it's for the benefit of everybody here, whether the hours in terms of the previous year were earlier ending as opposed to the 10 o'clock proposed in the 10s that we have before us.
Would it be possible for Betty Wood, the event organizer, to confirm that?
Yes, I think that's. I can check as well, but yes, I think that's perhaps one for the event organizer.
Yeah, the closing hours was 8:30 in 2020. This year we've applied for 10 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So have we got the presentation by the Metropolitan Police?
Yes, I appear on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. If I could just perhaps clarify, just looking at the procedure to be adopted, it suggests that the applicant will present their case first, followed by at point 7 the responsible authorities.
Yes, sorry, those are the usual procedures in relation to premises license applications or variations. The situation with a temporary event notice process is, of course, that it's the objection of the police that goes first, and therefore you go first on behalf of the police.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
It does indeed, and I will commence the presentation on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. The Metropolitan Police's objections to the temporary event notices fall under a number of categories. Those are outlined succinctly in the objection filed by the Metropolitan Police on the 14th of May, to which you've already been directed. Now, perhaps one of the primary concerns by the Metropolitan Police is the number of people that are likely to be attending this event. As you will know, there is a limit of 499 persons with a temporary event notice, and that includes all staff to be present at the event. Now, the concern on the part of the Metropolitan Police is that these events are taking place in a time of post-COVID lockdown over a series of weekends when, for everyone's benefit, it would be hoped that the weather had significantly improved. The consequence of that is that it is believed that the event will attract a much greater number of people than the limit that is allowed by way of a temporary event notice. Factoring in to that concern is the way in which the proposed event is to be managed. Now, it is suggested on behalf of Metropolitan Police that this is the type of event which would be more suitably managed by way of tickets. And the concern being that without a ticketed system, the applicant is not going to be able to sufficiently manage what the police expect to be a significant demand for such a type of event at this particular time. Now, it's noted that the applicant has suggested that it be managed by a clicker system. The concern on behalf of the police is the effectiveness of that particular management system and people moving in and out of the proposed venue. One matter that relates to that, and this is a question I expect to ask of the applicant in due course, is the reference to the perimeter being by way of a rope. Now, clarification of that will be important, because if the event venue is to simply be roped off in a standard way with a single rope, and it may very well be different, but this is of course a matter for the applicant to clarify, how does that prevent people getting into the venue other than by way of the entrance that will be managed by a clicker system? Because if the event is able to be accessed from different locations, then of course it means that it is entirely impossible for the event organizer to manage the number of people within that particular venue. And if that occurs, of course, the limit on numbers is impossible to control. There is also a concern about, with a high expected demand, how a queuing system is going to be organised. Because of course, if it is a one in, one out system, which seems to be the proposal, once the 499 number is reached, there is likely to be a significant gathering, either organised or unorganised, outside of the immediate venue. And again, the concern on behalf of the Metropolitan Police is that people will attend, perhaps with alcohol, congregate in and around the venue whilst waiting to get in, and that will lead or may lead to problems of crime and disorder, nuisance and antisocial behaviour. What also factors into that, and closely related, is the issue of off-site sales and consumption of alcohol. Now, it appears to be, well, it is proposed by the applicant that there will be off sales. And once again, the concern on behalf of the Metropolitan Police is that individuals will enter the premises of the venue, purchase their alcohol, for example, and take that off site, and that will lead to congregations in and around the venue, separate but also linked to perhaps people queuing and waiting to get in. And the concern is that that leads to a very large number of people congregating around the venue that cannot be managed effectively by the venue. And that will then lead, or may lead, to antisocial behaviour, crime, disorder, and public nuisance. What then links to that? And the reason I keep saying what links to that is because although these are separate points, they are of course cumulative and can add up to creating a problem, not merely as individual issues. And that is the security that is proposed at the venue. And the Metropolitan Police are of the view that the current proposals for security being as a base layer, 2 SIA registered security guards is not sufficient to cope with the level of demand that is expected for this type of event, and to cope with, in any event, 499 persons on that site. The police would expect a greater number of staff, particularly in the afternoon towards the evening time of the venue, to manage and cope with such a large number of people. There is also a concern, and this was raised on behalf of Metropolitan Police, about the absence of security staff wearing body-worn cameras. That I understand is not part of the proposal put on behalf of the applicant. And there is a real concern that that is a necessary addition to ensure the effectiveness of the security at the event. One further issue relates to, and again, this is a matter that I hope the applicant will be able to clarify, a matter with regards to access to toilet facilities. Now, it doesn't appear, and if I've missed it, I no doubt I will be corrected, but if there are no or insufficient toilet facilities within the venue, my understanding, and I am told by those who instruct me, that there are public toilet facilities in the park. However, what that would require is people coming in and out of the venue. That contributes to a difficulty in managing numbers, but it also contributes to that gathering by way of queuing outside of the venue. The applicant may well be able to clarify exactly how it proposes to deal with that matter, and I'll be grateful to hear that. Finally, I believe, before I check my notes, and I understand it has been agreed between the local authority and the applicant that there will be CCTV at the venue, but that CCTV will be limited to a period of 7 days. Again, if the applicant knows something different, they will be able to correct that. But it is the Metropolitan Police's position that a 7-day recording by way of CCTV is insufficient. And what would be required is a much longer period of retained CCTV to allow the police to go back and investigate incidents that may well be reported after a period of 7 days, which is not an unusual occurrence. And without CCTV being retained for a longer period of time, it is potentially the case that incidents which may arise will not be able to be investigated as they would usually be. If I could take a moment then to pause there to confirm that I have gone through all of the relevant objections on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. Two further issues that I wish to raise on behalf of the police, and that is one more of a inquiry to be addressed by the applicant in due course, and another a contextual factor. The inquiry factor is this. The applicant refers, and this relates to the provision of security staff, and the applicant refers to a base layer of staff and taking into account the particular weather conditions on the day or the days leading up to an event, how it will propose to ensure that it has a sufficient number of staff if it is not willing to have a base layer that is higher than that which is currently proposed. So effectively, what mechanisms have the applicant in place to ensure that it is able to take into account prevailing conditions and assign the particular number of staff in perhaps a very short period of time. The further the contextual factor is this. It will be known that leading up to these temporary event notices being filed, there was an application for a temporary premises license. That was then withdrawn, it is said, in conjunction with discussion with the council, and temporary event notices were supplied. A concern on behalf of the Metropolitan Police is that there was time, albeit a tight period of time, but there was time for a further temporary temporary premises license to be applied for and considered. But the use of temporary event notices is potentially a concerning circumvention of another procedure that would allow for greater scrutiny and input from other relevant interested parties. For now, Chair, Mr. Legal Advisor, those are the submissions on behalf of Metropolitan Police.
Thank you very much. Now, now we come to questions by the applicant to the Metropolitan Police.
Hello, everybody. My name. That was Underbelly's chance. Sorry, apologise. Hi, everybody. My name's Ed Bartlam. I'm director and founder of Underbelly. Thank you all for taking the time. I know this is rather short notice, so I appreciate everyone's taking the time for this. I've got a small presentation to read out, which is in 4 parts. One, just talk a bit about Underbelly, who we are, and our experience, which I think is important in this context. 2, about.
So, excuse me. I think you misunderstood. This is questions by the applicant to the police presentation. see, we come after this one, we then come to the presentation by the applicant. So
just in case you had any questions to ask, that was all.
Sorry, I apologise. This is, as I'm about to tell you, this is the first time we've ever had a premises licence appeal or a tenant appeal. So this is a new process for us. I have no questions. Everything will be answered in my presentation.
Good.
Fine. Okay. Any questions by the subcommittee to the Metropolitan Police, please? No, Councillor Benbow. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry.
It's all right.
Lesson have you learned from a year ago with all your comments? Are they based on reading a year ago events, or is it mainly on the hours that have been extended to 10, or is it both? Thank you.
Is that question for the police, Councillor Benbow?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. So what have you learned from the last event?
And is it down to with your comment, is it down to the extended hours for this year? That's right.
And Daniel.
Mr. Wand, if you want to just respond.
Yes, I'm grateful. What I discussed is the officer in charge, Miss P.C. Loizu, is here, and you will see her on the screen. I propose to allow her to answer those questions, given they are operational in nature. Any further issues I can clarify, but it seems it's proper information to be given by an operational officer.
Thank you, Belinda.
Good morning, all. In relation to the questions, was that for the events that occurred in August, the temporary event notice that occurred in August last year?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, in relation to crime and disorder, the police did not receive any complaints or reports in relation to crime and disorder with this event last year. No, we didn't.
With your leave, Councillor Cowper, I'm just going to follow that up with a slight clarification. I assumed that there was obviously no conditions last time because it was a temporary event notice.
Yeah, it was a temporary event notice. The police took a pragmatic approach to it. It was the restrictions were lifted and the events were allowed to go ahead.
Thank you very much, Belinda.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from councillors for the police?
If I could perhaps just clarify on behalf of the Metropolitan Police, there was a subsequent question that I think Ms. Loisy would need to answer, and that was whether the concerns that are raised this year derive wholly or partly from the fact that the hours are slightly longer this year than they were last year.
Yes. Yes, there are concerns because obviously the hours are longer, and the police can't condition a temporary event notice.
Okay. Very well. Well, I have no questions. So we'll now go on to have the presentation by the applicant, please.
I'm very sorry. I apologise for jumping in too early last time. Thank you all very much. So yes, 4 parts to this, and I'll try and keep it short, but a bit about who we are, a bit about the event last year, some comments on our undertakings and conditions that we would expect to have at this event this year, and then I'll go specifically look at all of the points raised in the MPS objection as well, and just answer those, and indeed the additional ones that have just been mentioned as well. So for those that don't know who Underbelly are, so I set up Underbelly 21 years ago. We are a live entertainment and cultural events company. We do a lot in London, and we work in quite high profile locations, predominantly in city centre areas. We've worked for various different local authorities in the last 21 years: Westminster, Lambeth, Tower Hamlets, Richmond, and of course with Merton last year. We present events in places like Leicester Square, where we do all of the Christmas events in Leicester Square, the Christmas events in Trafalgar Square. We run a cultural festival on the South Bank in Lambeth, which we've done for 11 years. We build pop-up theatres on Marble Arch. Suffice to say, this is what we do, and we've done it successfully for a very long time. In Edinburgh, where I started the company, we run a number of venues, pop-up temporary venues and theatres and outdoor areas at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. We produce Edinburgh's Christmas celebrations for Edinburgh Council. We produce Edinburgh's Hogmanay New Year's Eve celebrations for Scottish Government and Edinburgh City Council. The mainstay of what we do is creating well-run, well-managed, culturally important events and festivals for local authorities and for people to come and enjoy of all ages. Quite a lot of our events are non-ticketed. So going to the point that was raised earlier on, we know how to work in an environment where there is a transient audience that come and go from our sites. Christmas in Leicester Square being a very good example. You don't need a ticket to go there. You just come and enjoy it. And we manage that with robust stewarding and robust collaboration with local authorities. Last year, we, after lockdown, decided to launch 3 small, low-impact street food festivals under the banner of Street Eat. We launched one with you in Wimbledon Park. We also launched one on the South Bank. And we launched one in Victoria Park in Tower Hamlets. The Street Eat event in 2020 with you, it operated during August, as you know, from Tuesdays to Sundays. We welcomed many people to the site. The site was, because obviously we had reused tens, it was limited to a capacity, event capacity of 499, and we never exceeded 450 people, which obviously allowed for our staff on the site as well. The event was safe, socially distanced, and extremely well received. One only needs to go and have a look at our social media channels to see some really great comments from the local community. It was an opportunity for people in a safe family environment to come and enjoy some street food, some of which was from local street food operators, to enjoy some local music artists performing on a small little stage, and socialise, be outside, which I think we're all encouraged to be at the moment, and have a really nice time. And we really enjoyed doing it. We really enjoyed beginning a relationship with Merton, and that's why we're really keen and have been very keen to bring the event back this year. In March 2021, we'd agreed with Merton to return to Wimbledon Park, but to move the event to a different location in the park. And that was because there was some works planned on the lake behind our event space last year, and it was suggested that we move to the old bowling green. And that's at that point, Underbelly applied for a time-limited premises license for this new location. And as part of this application process, we agreed a draft conditions for the premises license with MPS. Now, however, subsequent to this, we were then told by Merton that the old bowling green was no longer available. And as a result, we had to move the site, and we moved back to the site that we were on last year. Due to this decision, which was a decision not in our gift, it was a Merton decision to move the event location to a different location. It was too late for us to apply for a new premises license. We had to withdraw one, and it was too late. We were left with only 37 days to apply for a premises license for the new location. And considering we needed 2 days to apply, 28 days of a consultation period, it would have only left us 7 days from which to go to committee and be ready to then build a site and indeed open a site. We agreed with Merton that this was unrealistic, and that considering that Streeted had run very successfully with absolutely no complaints, no issues of crowd management at all, on TENS last year, it was decided and believed that TENS was therefore a best solution, an appropriate solution for the same event this year. Moving on to kind of the undertakings and conditions that we had discussed and agreed with MPS for the premises license application. All of our events are extremely well managed, they're safe, they're family friendly, and it's important to emphasise that the 2020 version of Streeted at Wimbledon Park operated successfully with absolutely no complaints. The Streeted 2021 event was going to be operated in line and is going to be operated in line with the licence objectives that were there in 2020. And as part of our draft agreement with the police for conditions on the premises licence on the old site, we agreed 2 further undertakings with the police. 1, that CCTV would be on site, which has already been mentioned, and 2, that all of our staff would be asked to complete an online counter-terrorism training programme. The complete set of undertakings that we are proposing for the event at Wimbledon Park are as follows. 1, the site will have CCTV. 2, during operational hours, SIA badged security will operate the gates and patrol within the site. Security levels are based on in the event management plan are based on our base levels, and security will be increased and flexed when necessary, taking into consideration events, day of the week, and of course weather. This is a very common practice in event world. You have a base level and then we monitor success of the venue, success of the event, days of the week, weather, and we scale up and down as necessary. A personal license holder will be on site during all operational hours. All staff will complete CT and ACT awareness course. All music will be at a level that no one must speak loudly to hear themselves. All performances will be low key and are there to create an ambient atmosphere and not to draw a crowd. This is very important. We're not putting on Beyonce. We're not putting on U2. This is small local artists playing ambient music, giving them an opportunity to perform when they haven't been able to for a year. It's there for background entertainment, and that's it. There will be no live performances after 8 o'clock. Background music won't be able to be heard outside of the event site. Now, I'm completely aware that under the terms of a 10, MPS aren't allowed to attach conditions to a 10, but we can and we would expect to attach these conditions and undertakings to our commercial agreement with Merton. So there would be a fail-safe way of ensuring that we would undertake these. And in 21 years of operating event sites in London, in Edinburgh, in Aberdeen, in Hong Kong, we have never not gone through with any undertakings that we've made to a local authority. Indeed, as you can tell from my first rather badly timed introduction, this is the first time we've ever, in 21 years, had a premises license or a TENS application refused, and therefore it's the first time we've ever been in this position before. So just moving on to the specific points that have been raised in the MBS's objection letter. The first point was around the fact that it's likely to exceed a capacity of 499, and the letter states that the same applicant initially applied for a time-limited premises license for the period of 19th of May to the 31st of July for a capacity of 1,500 people. Well, this isn't entirely true. What was discussed and what's in email records, both on the 23rd and the 24th of March between Bertie and the police, is that we talked about the fact that there might be up to 1,500 visitors per day coming to the site. Not at any one time. We weren't asking for a capacity of 1,500. We were saying that during a day, there might be 1,500 people at different times of the day coming to the site and enjoying it. There was a question raised about the fact there was sufficient time to submit a new time-limited premises license application, and however, we did submit 10s instead. So just to confirm the reason for this again, we operated last year's event on 10s. We had planned to operate the new event this year in a premises license on the old bowling green. We applied for a time-limited premises license for this new location, and we agreed draft conditions for this new location. Merton then asked us to move the position within Wimbledon Park on the 13th of April, and therefore we were left with only 37 days to apply for a premises license for the new location. Considering we needed 2 days and 2 days to apply and 28 days of consultation, it would have only left us 7 days. And considering we'd run Street Eat on Tens last year with no adverse issues and no objections, we, Merton and Underbelly, felt it was the right thing to do to apply again for Tens. I can categorically confirm to all those here, there was no attempt to try and get around regulatory rules. Indeed, we very much wanted to run the event on a premises license application. It was not our fault that we then had to withdraw the premises license application and revert to the old site on Tens this year. The Metropolitan Police are concerned that the safeguards that were put in place with the agreed conditions for the time-limited premises licence cannot now be attached to the Tens. Well, as I said before, we are committing to all of the undertakings and conditions that were attached and agreed with MPS to the premises licence application. We understand they can't be legally attached to the Tens, but we are very, very happy to attach them to our commercial agreement and contract with Merton Council. There's a concern around the fact it's not a ticketed event, and it might lead to difficulty to control and risk assess the numbers of attendees. And supplementary to this, it was mentioned earlier on, there's a concern that post-COVID and with the weather turning good, lots of people will want to come to it. Well, that may be the case, but I think one has to look at the context of this event. And indeed, last year in August, it was also post a lockdown. It was also post a COVID lockdown, and the weather was extremely nice. And we didn't draw sizable crowds. We drew a lovely, family-friendly, transient audience that came and went from the site and caused no problems. So I really think that we need to understand the context of this event as one that is small and low impact, and not a great music festival, and not indeed one of the events that we run in central London. It's a low-key food market with a bar that has some local artists performing on a small bandstand stage. None of the artists are major names, and it's very much our feeling that this will be a good thing for the local community, just like it was last year. So just finally just going through a few of the other concerns that were raised just now. I think we talked about off-site sales. It was raised the concern around off-site sales. It was agreed, off-sales were agreed last year as part of the Tens. And the thinking behind this, and again, it had no impact whatsoever, was that in a world where people may want to continue to be socially distanced and indeed not congregate in one area, we felt it was a good thing that people were able to come and buy something to eat, have something to drink, and then take it off. If they didn't want to sit in the site, they could just take it off and sit in past the park. It was very low impact. We had no issues with it, and that's why it was being proposed again for this year. In terms of the stewarding provision, we accept that the stewarding provision in the event management plan is a base level, and we would wholly expect those numbers to flex up when we would get to busier times and when we knew that the weather might be good. In terms of looking at whether we have sufficient staff at short notice to allow that flex, what I would say is that we're one of the largest employers for stewarding companies in London in terms of temporary events. We have extremely good relationships with stewarding companies. The stewarding company that we would use for this event, which we used for the event last year, are called SFM. They are our stewarding contractor for Pride in London, for West End Live, for our Christmas events in Leicester Square and Trafalgar Square. We have a very good relationship with them. We already know who the supervisor is that's meant to be doing this. We already have our pool of stewards, and we are entirely confident that if we would need to up the numbers, we would be able to do that at short notice. It's what we've done for 21 years. In terms of toilet facilities, yes, the plan would be as per last year, that we use the toilets in the sports centre next door to the site. We're not worried about this causing crowd congregations or anything. This is something that's perfectly possible. People leave the site, they go to the toilet. If they come back and the site is at capacity, they have to wait in line like anybody else. As it is, we never had any sort of significant crowd build up in the queue to get onto the site last year. Our gate is manned and patrolled. and stewarded, but we had no queues for access into the site at all. Body cameras is not something that we have put in the event management plan. I think we'd be very happy to consider this and look at this with our stewarding provider. We're actually planning another festival in Cavendish Square, just off Oxford Circus, and we're doing exactly that there as well. So we'd be very happy to add that to our list of undertakings if that provided comfort for people. I think that is it from me, although I probably have missed something, and I apologise if I have, but I would just like to finalise by saying, I really, from our point of view as an event company that want to do live events and do them well, and from the point of view of local artists who would like to perform and local street food operators that would like to operate, and also from the point of view of an event that had significant positive repercussions last year in terms of the local community and giving people a nice time in an outdoor space. We think this is a really important event for Merton. It's a small, low-key, low-impact event, and we really hope that you will listen to these thoughts and arguments positively, because we've enjoyed doing the event there, and we really want to do the event this year with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, sorry, can I, Councillor Cowper, if I can just,
Certainly.
I think one of the points that the police made was about the rope around the outside. If you want to address that point, just to help you.
Sorry, yes, perhaps I forgot the rope, apologise. So last year we did operate the perimeter line with a rope and post, as we call it. And we did do that, and we did that for mainly the two reasons, really. One, because we realised it would be a low impact event and it'd be very unlikely we'd ever have anyone jumping over it. And we didn't have anyone jumping over it. There was a feeling of kind of, again, impact in the park. I mean, it's perfectly possible to put up a large fence line with 2 metre kind of Harris fencing, but it's not attractive. And we didn't think it was in any way in best keeping with the environment and indeed the kind of scale of the event. So it was rope and post. We have a stewarding provision. The stewarding provision are on the gate. The gate is monitored, and they're also, very much keeping an eye on the rope and post perimeter. The perimeter is not large. It's not a very long perimeter line. And we would absolutely propose to keep the rope and post because we think it fits the event and fits the environment it's in.
Thank you very much. Yes. Right. Now, questions by the Metropolitan Police to the applicant, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 3 questions. One, just to follow up on the issue of scaling up of security. You've explained how you do scale up security when it's required, and you work with industry partners to do that. But perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about what the process is, who is responsible for identifying at what point additional security is required, and how that assessment takes place.
Well, I'll let Bertie jump in there, as Bertie's our head of bars. And
so every Monday for each week, I will discuss with our security provider the numbers and confirm the numbers for that week. If the weather is going to be, very, very hot, very nice, then we will increase our security as required. If it's going to be like last week and be thunderstorms, then we would keep it closer to the base level. The security company SFM, they would then confirm that day that everyone has been booked and we were all happy. So it'd be done on the Monday for the following Thursday to Sunday.
I'd also add, and I know one can't write this down in a condition or an undertaking, but it's not as an event organizer, it's not in our interest to have an under stewarded site. And I'd add that we wouldn't have been able to do some of the events we've done in the last 20 years and the locations we've done them if that was our kind of modus operandi. So I think there has to be a trust thing there. I know that that may be the wrong thing to say in this, but there really has to be a trusting there. We run good sites and we understand that we need the appropriate stewarding at the right time. I also think it's fair it's fair though for us as an event organizer to say we can't commit to X number when it might be a very cold, rainy day on a Monday afternoon. So it's just about trying to find that balance. But absolutely, we have operated very successfully with a flex stewarding plan in a number of locations for a number of years.
Thank you. And perhaps just one follow-up question on that matter for Mr. Woodhead or Mr. Bartlam. You may have mentioned this and I may not have heard, but is it possible to increase security capacity on a daily basis? So on a Friday, the weather turns to be beautifully warm and you have a larger number of expected people trying to access the site. Does it have to wait till Monday to increase for the following week, or can you increase on Friday for the Saturday?
Yes, we can increase the day before. Absolutely.
Thank you. A question that was raised before, and I don't think it was answered, so perhaps it can be clarified now. The issue with CCTV only lasting for 7 days. Is there any proposal on behalf of the applicant to meet by way of an undertaking a condition to have a CCTV that records for a longer period of time for the benefit of crime prevention and crime detection?
Yes, we'd be happy to. I think our equipment can record up to 28 days.
Thank you. And my final question just relates to events last year. It seems by my calculation that there were 21 days of events, 28 days of events last year. Does that accord with your understanding?
It did, yes.
It seems to me that that is over the number of TENs that are required in one calendar year period. Is that right? Is that your understanding? And if so, how did it come to be that you had 28 days allowed last year rather than the 21?
We initially applied for 21 days, which was a 3-week event. We then agreed with Merton Council to extend for a week, and we applied for an additional week.
Thank you. I have, if you could bear with me for one moment. Perhaps just one final question. Have Underbelly or Street Eat received any communication from local residents in relation to this event, proposing any particular objections or concerns?
I'm only aware we've had no objections or concerns for the current event proposed on the site from last year. There were some objections raised, I believe, in the premises license application. But we haven't received any since then, and obviously that was withdrawn.
And do you recall what the objections were in relation to the temporary events license from local residents?
30, that's one for you, I'm afraid.
I'd have to remind myself, they were a mixed bag. Some were objecting to the length of time due to us applying for a premises license up to the 31st of July. The only reason we did that was in case Wimbledon was cancelled again, then we would potentially extend our opening dates. But obviously Wimbledon is going ahead, so that became unavailable. Other than that, there were some objections to the use of the park for events. But apart from that, that's it, I think.
Thank you both. I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions by the subcommittee of the applicant? Councillor Benbow.
Okay, right. If you think about a year ago, there was co-drivers rules in our place. People were very cautious and being careful, respecting everyone's safety. And your events a year ago were open to half 8 at night, and was it seemed to be fine. It all went away, but if you think a year later, we're much more the COVID rules have been left. I think there's more of a risk of people thinking there's more freedom, and also there's a risk of not respecting people safety. Have you considered about this when you decided to extend the hours from 8 to 10 at night? As well as thinking about the local people outside the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think that in terms of looking at the hours for this year, I think it's important to make the point that there's no proposed music after 8 o'clock. So although we've asked for a slightly later closing time, and that's partly to allow for more of a phased dispersal, which is quite a common practice in live events, so that not everyone's leaving at the same time, and some people will still leave at 8 and 8:30, and some people might stay a bit longer. There's no planned live music, and I say no one will be able to hear anything outside of the event site. In terms of your point around, is there a change in people's feelings in terms of being more cautious last year to this year, I think that's a difficult one to balance. I think that this event site and this event is, and I keep coming back to the same word, it is low key and low impact and friendly. It's not about we're not about trying to create a big crowd, and it's not the kind of event that does that. It is a street food festival, and I think that we hope people will come and enjoy it. But I think we also find that often the best place for people to enjoy something to eat and drink is in a well-controlled, well-managed, well-stewarded environment, and that's exactly what we're proposing and what we did last year.
All right then. Thank you. Would you ever consider?
Just a minute, Nigel, please. Councillor Makin.
A quick question, please. Would you consider skinning back the hours from 10 to 8 like a year ago? Would this be a problem?
I think it would be. I think we'd be very open to looking at a kind of combination of the two, and whether that time was perhaps that closing time was reduced on maybe on a certain day of the week, like a Sunday or something, and to bring it shorter. But we do believe that there won't be any adverse impact on the slightly later closing time because of the reasons I've just given in terms of music and no loud music being played after 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe Councillor Makin had his hand up just now.
Yeah.
Question.
When would food be served until? Because it's a street food event as well. So, how if you got to stop live performance at 8 o'clock, and presumably the bar at 10, what's the food situation?
They'd be trading, and all food traders will be trading until 10 as well.
So they'd be trading till 10 as well, right? Thank you.
I have a feeling there was a question I wanted to ask, but I have a feeling that it's already been answered by the Metropolitan Police. So I have no further questions for you. May I ask the licensing officer for any comments or clarification?
I've got no further comments to add, Chair.
Sorry?
I've got no further comments to add or clarifications, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Can I ask the legal advisor for any
Councillor Makin has a question.
Sorry?
Your councillors have questions.
I've just got another question. It's about COVID and social distancing.
Oh, sorry.
The obviously the entrance, would the entrance have the water things, the sprays and whatever for people to wash their hands? And how would you envisage people entering and leaving the site and socially distancing at the same time? Because presumably the entrance is one place, it's the same as the exit.
Yes, so I mean, last year it's worth noting that actually Underbelly, we were the almost first company in London to do COVID secure event sites. This one being one of them last year. There are a number of measures that are in the operational management plan, but they include track and trace. Obviously, they include sanitizers, both sanitizing stations at the door, which are automatic, at the gate, sorry, but also around the site. The entrance is quite wide. We split it with some fencing between it, so there's an in, there's an out. And of course, you know, it's a big open outdoor space. We have perspex at the bar. Bertie, what else would you like to highlight in terms of our COVID measures?
Just all our tables and seating pods will be spatially distanced so that one group isn't sitting too close to another group. All our queues will have queue markers, and with the track and trace will be in place, and there'll be hand sanitizer and on offer all around site.
Thank you. Councillor Benbow.
Thank you. In your venue, you will have an enforcement people, you know, making sure everyone is safe, guarded, etc. Do you have a plan how to set your venue in a chance of like litter, you know, beers and cans being thrown around, and where the people, you know, walking around the street, would you have any enforcement in a place, or is it left to the police? Thank you.
So in terms of site cleaning and site cleanliness, we have a site dedicated cleaning team. They clean our site as well as the toilets, as well as the park, and they help litter pick. We have a dedicated waste team who pick up our rubbish every day, and we split our rubbish into recyclable waste, general waste, food and glass, and this is collected each day. But our clean team on site do a sweep of the site and the area outside it. That's been agreed with Merton about how we work with the parks team who run the parks, and we had a meeting with them last week, and they were very happy with how it went last year as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask the legal advisor for any comments or clarifications?
I think, yes, a few things. Principal and most important thing is, obviously with the temporary event notices, you can't impose conditions. And so there is an issue with enforceability related to all those undertakings and conditions that have been we've been taken through by Mr. Bartlam, and obviously Mr. Woodhead as well. Obviously, if I need to advise you on that during deliberations, I will. That's all I need to talk about right now, I think.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have come to the closing statements by the applicant, please.
I just want to say thank you very much, really, for your time today, and I really hope that we are able to bring this safe and socially distanced and good event for the local community to Wimbledon Park again this summer. I do just want to also just highlight, in terms of what Mr. Bishop has just said around the undertakings and understanding the kind of lack of enforceability, I suppose, because they can't be attached as conditions to a license. I would ask you to take into account our track record in terms of our history of events and where we've done those, and the fact that we are an experienced event operator that have worked in some very sensitive locations, and we wouldn't have done that unless we didn't have a track record in making sure that our sites were very well run and very well managed. And as I say, just to confirm, I'm very happy that all of those undertakings go into a contractually legally binded agreement with Merton if they can't actually be added to the tender. So I just want to kind of clarify that and make that point. And also to say that we look forward to bringing this event to you, and thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you. Now we come to the closing statements by the Metropolitan Police.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like Mr. Bartham, I won't rehearse the entirety of the Metropolitan Police's objections. You've heard them not long ago in this relatively short hearing. What I do say, however, in closing, is that the concerns raised by the Metropolitan Police do remain, given the attractiveness of this event, the fact that it is not ticketed, not secured by way of a more secure perimeter fence than a rope, concerns about off sales and park congregation, and the coming and going from the event. I note you've heard some responses from the applicant in terms of the CCTV being retained for a longer period of time, and I think the words were consideration to body-worn footage being used by SIA registered staff, and consideration of those appropriate numbers on a daily basis. Of course, councillors, is a matter for you as to whether if those conditions are, as part of an undertaking, you are so satisfied. But notwithstanding those conditions, this is the Metropolitan Police's case that concerns still remain in relation to this event, and that there would likely be breaches of licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for attending this meeting. I'm now going to announce that the subcommittee are about to retire to closed session, and I invite the legal advisor and clerk to join us to provide advice. Once I have closed the hearing, our clerk will disconnect you from the meeting room. And then I will add, excuse me, we will inform all those present that all parties will receive a written copy of the decision notice as soon as possible. I therefore now close the hearing. Thank you all for your attendance.